Viola.
I love to travel, and before I visit a new country, I always like to find some of their folk tales.
Folk tales are simple stories that have been told and retold, passed down by word of mouth from generation to generation. They unify people.
Often when you listen to a folk tale, you'll know where it comes from. At the end of this story, I'll tell you what part of the world it started in.
In my retelling of this story, I'm calling it A Yeti is Not Just a Cooler. Many, many years ago, in the part of our globe where you'll find the highest mountains, several people who had lived in a variety of caves happened by chance to reach a beautiful valley at the same time. Up until that day, all of them had struggled to stay alive by continuously climbing up and down the high peaks, searching for food and hoping to stay warm and comfortable. They realized that if they built homes in that valley at the foot of the gigantic snow-covered mountains, they could work together and their lives would be not only easier but safer. Gathering food was exhausting, and they had to be constantly on the lookout for the terrifying Yetis. Again, not a cooler, but an enormous white monster who hides in plain sight in the snow and can jump out suddenly and attack anyone walking by. If you're trying to imagine what one looks like, picture a being half like a bear, half like a human, but much bigger than either one, covered entirely in hair with a scary look on his or her face. The Yeti had huge bodies but small brains. They were not at all creative, and the only way that they could entertain themselves was watching the human beings and then occasionally attacking them. In the beginning, each person brought a yak down to the valley, and together they took care of their animals and made yak butter from their milk. The valley was green, and the snow from the high mountains that formed a ring around the beautiful valley melted, which meant that there was always fresh, clean water. After they had spent some time living together, it could have been 2 years or it may have been more, they decided that they would kill one of their yaks and offer it with prayers and music as a sacrifice to thank the mountain gods who had protected them. The celebration was a cheerful one because it is always a good thing to recognize help when it has been given. It was almost midnight when the people went back to their homes, tired and feeling satisfied after drinking and eating their favorite foods. While the villagers slept, the Yetis quietly came down from the mountains and one by one killed all of the yaks. When the people awoke in the morning and saw that every one of their animals had been slaughtered, they were shocked. Some cried, some screamed. After a while, when they had calmed down a bit, one small child pointed to the ground and said, "Look, these footprints are bigger than I am." The people had always had a vague feeling of the dangers in the mountains, but nothing like this had ever before happened, and now they knew the attackers had been the Yetis. "We must teach them a lesson," said one man. "We cannot let anything like this happen again," added another. "But they're twice the size of the largest of us and 3 times as strong and more athletic. We would never win a fight against them." They were all quiet for several minutes until one of the mothers spoke up. "These scary monsters are a little like small children. They imitate what they see others do. They saw us kill a yak, and then they tottered down here and did the same thing. I think that we can trick them into killing each other, and that way we would be safe. She explained her plan, and they all agreed it was a good one. Very quickly, mothers, fathers, and children were working together making fake, light wooden weapons. The people in that place had always been excellent carpenters and craftsmen, and they had no trouble in making swords for all of the men that looked just like the real swords which they kept well cared for inside of their houses. When they had finished, all of the women and children went into their homes. The men put on a great play, hollering and running and lunging at each other, stabbing each other, and then pretending to be dead on the ground. As it was beginning to get dark, the women were able to sneak out and lay the real weapons on the ground, while the men quietly went inside with the fake swords. As they had expected, at around midnight, the Yetis came down, picked up the metal swords, and began imitating the battle they had seen that afternoon. Soon, all of the Yetis except one were dead, and before daylight he went back up into the snow-covered mountains. No one knows how long a Yeti can live, but the people of that village say that you can often hear the sad moanings of an enormous white beast if you listen carefully after the sun sets. This is a tale that is told in Bhutan.